Welcome everyone. This is another vlog of our series on simplifying health economics, and today is the first part of a two-part vlog on utilities. And today we are going to focus on preferences and utilities, and Luis will describe these concepts in a minute. And in the next vlog, I will talk about how to maximize utilities and welfare in a society. Over to you, Luis.
So let's start by talking about what is a preference. And a preference, as you can see in this slide, it's something that refers to an order by which an individual can rank alternatives based on the utility. This is what we call in economics, but you can talk about the satisfaction that they provide. So this is very simple. Let me ask you, and I'll ask Valerio. Valerio, do you prefer 1 kilogram of strawberries or do you prefer 1 kilogram of apples?
Oh, I got a very sweet tooth, so I prefer strawberries, to be honest. Yeah.
Are they sweeter?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it depends. So yeah, me too. If I have to rank, I also prefer strawberries to apples. So I would choose the same. Now, this proves that we can rank them. There is a preference. We can say that we prefer strawberries to apples. And this is a preference. This is a relation between, in economics, we would say two bundles. We would generalize. Bundles means that it's a basket of potential goods that are in there. But we can simplify it and use two products, in this case, apples and strawberries. And everyone should have preferences because that's how people make choices. If they prefer something to another thing, they choose that one. So that's the beginning of choice theory. That's the beginning of consumption theory. Now, let me just be a little bit more technical, just for you to see in case you can buy it. In economics, preferences are usually written in the way that you can see below. You usually have that you have some X, and that X, if you have that sign that seems like a bigger sign than Y, it means that you prefer X to Y. In this case, let's use strawberries and apples. So in that first case, where X is bigger than Y, let's X be strawberries, let's Y be apples. It means that we prefer strawberries to apples. And in the first one, we strictly prefer strawberries to apples. We are completely certain that in every circumstance, I always prefer strawberries to apples. Then in the second one, we have the case of what we called weakly preferences. So in this case, we weakly prefer, in this middle one, we weakly prefer strawberries to apples. What does it mean? It's very, very, very simple. It's just that I know for sure that I don't prefer apples to strawberries. So I might prefer strawberries to apples, or I might be indifferent between them. I'm not super sure, but I know for sure that I don't prefer apples to strawberries. And then we can have the last one. These are the three possibilities. The last one is I'm indifferent. I'm indifferent between, and I know I'm indifferent between strawberries and apples. So that's it. As long as you can say that you like strawberries more than apples or apples more than strawberries, or that you maybe have a weak preference towards one of them, or that you are indifferent, you are in the context of what we call complete preferences. And here in this slide, we are going to check some axioms, some hypotheses, some whatever you want to call it, that we use in economics to then model things. So completeness is very, very simple. It means that for two goods or two bundles or whatever you want to call it, you can always choose. And choosing means you can say that either you prefer strawberries to apples, or you weakly prefer strawberries to apples, or you are indifferent between strawberries and apples. And you are like, okay, but aren't those the only three possibilities that exist in the world? So I'll ask you, Valerio, aren't those? Is it possible for a preference not to be complete? Is it possible for you to not know if you prefer strawberries to apples?
There is a possibility, isn't it? It depends on the context, I guess. The specific circumstances you're asking me about whether I prefer or I'm indifferent. Yeah, I don't know.
So if I tell you need to ask between the death of your father and the death of your mother, and you might just say, no, I refuse. Some people may choose, but some people may just say, no, I refuse. That's completely immoral. I'm not going to choose. So that's an example of lack of completeness. You don't want to have a preference about that. Another example would be when you don't know. If I give you a menu, you go to a restaurant and I give you a menu in another language that you don't understand, how do you choose between two dishes if you don't understand the language? And let's say you don't have access to any translation methods. You just need to choose. There's no figures, there's no nothing. You need to choose based on characters that you don't know or on a language that you don't know. Then your preference cannot be complete. And that's very often the case. There are some products that we don't know. And if we have to rank them, we cannot because we don't know exactly what they do. Now, transitivity, it's also very intuitive. It says that if I prefer strawberries to apples and apples to oranges, then I prefer strawberries to oranges. Again, if preferences behave correctly, they should be like this. But will they be like this every single time? And Valerio, you know the answer, but
no, I was doubting as you were talking about strawberries, oranges, and apples. I was doubting that, and yeah, it doesn't make sense all the time. I will say there are circumstances where the transitivity might not apply fully. Let's say,
I'll give you one that I used to give to my students when I was teaching microeconomics, which is the following. You are not a student anymore, but you'll surely understand this one. You have three options. One is you can go to the cinema. The second one is you can study. Which one do you prefer?
Well, going to the cinema, say.
Yeah, of course, unless you are strange. And then you have a third one, which is going to the hospital to visit your aunt. But your aunt is not bad, just okay. But you feel like that morally obligation of going there. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer to stay at home studying or going to the hospital visiting your aunt?
If I'm a very good relative, I'll go to see my aunt. But
no, she's
probably
fine.
if I need to,
she's fine.
if she's fine, if you assure me she's fine, I will stay at home and study.
Yes. So okay. Now the thing is, then we are saying that it's better to go to the cinema than studying, but it's better to stay at home studying than going to the hospital just for the sake of moral, of societal etiquette, let's say. But now, do you prefer going to the cinema than going to visit your aunt at the hospital?
No, because that's not a good excuse anymore. Studying is a good excuse, isn't it?
Exactly. So that's the point. This is not transitive because you may be like, no, if I stay at work, I have a fine excuse and my parents will be, oh, great. No, he's not coming because he's staying to study. But if you go to the cinema, your parents will put you.
I'm in trouble,
Yeah, you are in trouble. So that's an example. And there are plenty of those where you can find fails or violations of transitivity. Now, these two together are very important because they make what we call rationality. Just a name. Don't think about it. It's just a name. It's rationality. But they are very important because this rationality assumption is what we need to put things into utilities. And we are going to see it in the next slide, but I'm going to spoil you. So utilities means that we can give numbers. It's literally transform preferences into mathematics. So give numbers and know that a product where you put a higher number is preferred to a product where you put a lower number. So if I say, I'll choose random numbers. If I say that strawberries for me have a value of 5, and apples have a value of 3, then I know that strawberries are preferred. Now, before we are going there, let's just finish with some other important axioms, which are not necessary for you to put things into mathematics, but are necessary to make mathematics a lot easier. So one is monotonicity, which is the more is better assumption. And it's very easy to explain this. It's just that more is better. So if you have more strawberries, it's better than having less strawberries. That's it. As simple as that. But do you think this always happens, that more is better?
Well, if you think about it's the old example, like if you're thirsty and the first glass of water is great, but if I give you more and more water, you get sick of it, I think. And the same with strawberries. If you, I don't know, the first, second strawberry, very nice. The 15th, the 16th, maybe not so much. So you prefer probably fewer strawberries at some point.
So yes,
Yeah.
they will have what we call in economics decreasing marginal utility. So
Yeah.
the next one gives you less and the next one gives you less. But you are right, at some point, it may become negative. If you eat too many strawberries, you may get sick. Or imagine that you are getting too many strawberries and you are storing them at home. At some point, you don't have where to store them. They are getting spoiled and they are smelling, and you don't want more. You don't. There's a satiation point where you don't want more. So that's very easy to see that in reality may not happen a lot of the times. But at least in more natural situations, it probably does. If you go to a supermarket and you are buying something, if you could get a little bit more for the same price, why not? We only need the first two to have utilities, but if we have all these five, we basically have utilities, and we have well-behaved utilities from well-behaved preferences, and things are so much easier to model in economics and to try to make analysis. So that's what we assume in economics, and you are going to say, yeah, but if you just gave me a lot of counterexamples, are you right in assuming that? No, but it's the best we can do. We assume that, and then sometimes we try to understand what if some of this failed, and this is called behavioral economics, is precisely to try to understand when these axioms of well-behaved preferences do not work. So, okay, let's go to utilities. And if we have some nice, well-behaved utilities, we can basically do something like you can see in here, where we have utility. There's an assumption behind. If there are economists watching this, yes, I know I'm assuming perfect substitution, which is not right, but doesn't matter. So in this case, basically, I'm writing mathematically my preference for strawberries and apples. What I'm saying is that my utility, and look, utility is satisfaction. My utility, I gain twice as much utility, so 2 times strawberries, twice as much utility from strawberries than I get from apples. I'm literally quantifying it. I'm saying that I prefer strawberries, and I'm saying more than that. I'm saying that I prefer strawberries twice as much as apples. This is very important. So if I consume 1 kilogram of strawberries, I will get an utility of 2. 2 times 1, it's 2. I get an utility of 2. If I consume 1 kilogram of apples, I get an utility of 1. This is completely amazing, because then we can put preferences of people in real life in mathematics and analyze them. We can say precisely how much more some person prefers something to the other. And you will see an amazing and super important application in the next slide. Now, before going there, I just want to tell you something, is that this number means nothing in absolute terms, because, for instance, instead of 2 strawberries plus 1 apple, I could have 4 times strawberries plus 2 times apples. It's still the same. The relative value is still the same. So if I substitute 1 kilogram in here, I get 4 utility. If I substitute 1 kilogram of apples in here, I get 2 of utility. So I still prefer strawberries twice as much as apples. So this is exactly the same as this. I just get a higher number here in the utility. So the absolute value of this means nothing, but the relative value of this means everything. Now I'll give you a real life example. Have you ever heard of cost utility analysis? Have you ever heard about the qualis? I'm sure you have, Valerio, because we have done some blogs about that. And you please go watch those blogs. So those are utility values. Those are people's preferences into numbers that have a relation to each other. So we can say that if some person has a preference for a state in the EQ5D that is twice as much the value as the other state, then they prefer that state twice as much as the other. Now we are going to see it here, and if we saw our vlog of the qualities, you have seen this table, and it's precisely that. So these are the quantification of the preferences of people for instance, having mobility that is not very good, it's severe, or they are simply unable to move. So this is how much people value these states. Look, there's not a minus in here, but these are all negative stuff. So there could be a minus in here, so they are negative. And you can see that having slight problems of mobility gives this number. Again, don't look at, it doesn't matter the overall number. In here it kind of does because we are making it in percentage, but it could be twice. We can multiply it by 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you can see that then having moderate problems with utility is worse because it's a higher number. And remember, it should be a negative number, so it's a higher number, it's worse. And you can see that severe, it's much worse. So it's almost 4 times as bad as having slight mobility problems, okay? And then being unable, it's even worse. So it's more or less 5 times as bad as having slight problems in mobility. And all these numbers also relate to the other ones. So for instance, if I pick here, pain and discomfort severe, which is a similar value to this one, it literally means that for the people, they value it more or less the same as mobility being unable. So that's it. And this is fantastic because you know by now probably what we use the QALYs for. The QALYs we then use to evaluate these increments in quality of life and then to do economic evaluation and to decide which interventions, drugs, etc. should go into the market or not. So that's it for today. The conclusions are, first, that preferences are very complex. You saw the amount of assumptions that we need to make and how they can be violated very easily. We need to make strong assumptions in order to be able to quantify them and to be able to analyze them. Utilities are a quantification of preferences, and we can use utilities in real-life research to characterize people's preferences. As you just saw, one of the most important applications that I remembered of was the QALYs that are really very important. And that's it for today. See you in the next one.
Thank you, Luis. See you.
Thank you.